Hey guys, Brendo New Productions here, and welcome to the Python tutorial about organizing a project into modules. So as you can see, I've got Visual Studio Code open, which means we're going to be working on a project. This is going to be nothing complex, just demonstrating how to take a project, create a single .py file, and actually start to separate the project into multiple .py files. So I have a folder, PMT, and I'm just going to create a new Python project there. So I'm going to create a new file called main.py. This isn't really any convention, it's just my preference. And in main.py, all I'm going to do is take the argument that the user provides us and print this argument. So I'm just going to go ahead and import sys, right? So as you recall from the previous tutorial, this is the module that has command line arguments inside of it, right? And I'm just going to take the one argument that the user has provided. We're going to make a lot of assumptions here and say that they just provided one argument. There's also an argparse module which you can use to design command line interfaces. However, that's a later tutorial. For now, we're just going to say value is sys.argv. We're going to extract the second variable. Remember, the first variable in argv, the first element, is the path to the script itself. We don't want that. And then we're just going to print that value back out. Right? We're creating a very simple script. And then on our command line, if we invoke python main.py, hello, you can see that the script simply prints hello. So this is a very basic program, right? But it's kind of useful to demonstrate how to start creating command line interfaces. So I want to make this program a little more complex. Basically, what my program is going to do is it's going to accept a single word inside of the command line arguments, and it's going to verify that this word exists in a small list of words, right? So essentially see if the word is spelled correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some logic to actually see if this is a valid word. Now, I'm actually running a Windows system, so this is a little more difficult. On Unix systems, there's actually a list of words inside usually user local shared or etc that you're able to use inside of a program. I'm not sure what it's called. It's called like dictionary or something. However, for this tutorial, I'm just going to go online and grab a list of words, a text list of words. I will be right back. Okay, so I went ahead and got this list of words. Apparently the file is called words on Linux, and this is from Duke University, so thanks Duke. So now, basically what we want to do is we want to take the word given to our command line program and validate that it is in this list of words, right? So, is hello in the list of words? Yes it is. So that would be a valid word. However, we could do that in this main.py file. However, we also want to kind of, make it into a library. So we're going to make a new module, and all the module is going to do is spell check a word. So inside of our project, we're actually going to create a new file, and we're going to call it spellcheck.py. And this spellcheck is going to have one function, def spellcheck, and it's going to take a word. And all it's going to do is return true if spelled correctly, false otherwise. So this spell check function is going to have basically two jobs. Job number one, it's going to read the words from the .txt file, and job number two, it's going to actually verify that our word is inside of the words.txt file. So this actually should be pretty simple. So in order to open a file, we have to use the open syntax. So we're going to say with open linuxwords.txt. We're going to read the file as f word list equals f.read. I'm actually going to change this to contents. Great. So we have now read the file linuxwords.txt. We use the open function, which is by default imported into all modules. And all this does is open a file with a mode. We use the with syntax, and this makes sure that as soon as we exit this with context here, the file is properly closed. Otherwise, we could actually open it and then close it ourselves. However, this with makes sure that it's closed properly, and it looks pretty cool. And then we go ahead and read the file itself into our contents variable. So if we actually look in our linuxwords.txt file, there's two things to notice. First thing, there's three things to notice. First thing, it's huge. So reading it probably will take a little bit. I mean, it's not too bad, but it's sizable. Second thing to notice, the words are separated with new lines. So in order to get a list of words, we're going to have to actually read the contents and then split by a new line. Third thing to notice, there are some words that are presumably proper nouns that start with a capital letter. However, when the user types a word, we don't really want to care about casing. So we have to keep that in mind. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say word list is contents.splitlines. So split lines is a function. I wonder if Visual Studio Code will tell us what it is. No. So split lines is a function. It operates on strings, and it will basically split a list or a string into a list of strings based on where the line ending is. Now, there has to be a function for this because based on what system you're on, what operating system you're on, the way you actually split lines is different. So split lines is a platform-independent version of this. And in some implementations of Python, I'm not sure about the one I have, split lines will actually return an iterator over the list of words, right? So we actually want to turn that iterator into a list. I'm going to check if this is correct. So in order to check if it's correct, I'm going to whip out the Python REPL, and I'm just going to type in hello.splitlines. hello/n world.splitlines. And actually it looks like this returns a list rather than a generator. So we're good. Word list is content.splitlines. And remember, I told you that we want to actually not worry about casing, right? So there's this string function. I think it's called lower. Let's see, hello.lower. Okay, yes, there's a string function called lower that converts every character to lowercase. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert all of these words to lower. So we're going to say for word in word list. Actually, we're going to use some list comprehension here. So list comprehension is a way of basically putting for loops inside of a list. So we can say word.lower for word in content.splitlines. So now word list is a list of words from contents.splitlines, and for each word inside of contents.splitlines, we convert it to lowercase, and then we insert it into this list. So word list is now a list of lowercase words. Now word should also be a lowercase version, right? So we're going to create a new variable, lowercase word equal to word.lower. Alternatively, we could just name this word. However, a thing to look out for here is if we name this word, right, we might not be creating a new variable here, but rather overriding the variable that was provided. This is a problem if strings are passed by reference in Python. And indeed, they are passed by reference in Python, and we can check to see if this implementation would clobber the argument in our Python REPL. So let's just go ahead and create a sample function. It accepts a parameter, and then inside we say the parameter name equals something else. And then if we say s equals goodbye, and then we call sample with s and query for what s is, you can see that s has retained its goodbye. So although Python does indeed pass strings by reference, it does not look like assigning a new value to them actually changes the value. Right? I believe this is because strings are immutable in Python. So now we have this word list, which is a list of words, a list of lowercase words. And now all we have to do is return whether or not our word is in word list. And that's that. We now have this spell check function that returns true if the word is spelled correctly, false otherwise. I'm wanting to give it a more creative name. So how about is spelled correctly? That's a very verbose name, but it will do. Now, one other thing I want to do before we actually use this library is a little bit of optimization. So every time we call is spelled correctly, we're actually going to open this file. We're going to read the file, and then we're going to populate, we're going to lowercase them all, and then we're going to use this pretty expensive checking whether or not a word is in a list. And this is expensive because this list here, we're basically going to check every element in the list to see if it's equal to word. However, we can optimize this a lot. So optimization number one, right? We want to read the file once and keep its results. So in order to do that, basically all we're going to do is create another function, read dictionary file. And this function is going to use a global variable. This global variable will contain the actual contents, already lowercased. So we're going to create a global variable called dictionary, right? And instead of using a list, we're actually going to use a set. So a set is a list. It's basically a collection of unique items, and a set is also hashed, which means when you're checking for membership inside of a set, you don't need to check every single element. You only need to check, well, you hash the thing that you're looking for membership in, and then you check to see if that hash exists. You don't actually have to look through every element. So we now have this global variable called dictionary, and then we have a function called read dictionary file. We can go ahead and borrow what we have for our is spelled correctly, well, at least most of it. So we have with open linuxwords.txt. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we're using the global variable dictionary, right? Because we're about to edit it. And then we want to say if dictionary return. So basically, if the contents of dictionary, or if there are contents in the dictionary already, we don't want to do anything. So this will stop us from reading the dictionary file multiple times. So now, since we haven't returned, we're going to actually read the file. So with open linuxwords.txt, read the file, and then we're going to go ahead and say dictionary equals, and then we can actually change this list comprehension to set comprehension. And set comprehension is the same exact thing as list comprehension, except it generates a set. So it equals word.lower for word in contents.splitline. Okay, so now we actually have this read dictionary file, which will ensure that we only read the dictionary file once. It returns a set, or it generates a set, so that looking up our word inside of the dictionary will be efficient. Now our is spelled correctly function is nice, right? So all we have to do is call read dictionary file and then return word in dictionary. And we don't actually have to declare dictionary as a global variable here because we're not assigning or editing it, or we're not assigning to it. So we can go ahead and just use it directly. So after 15 minutes, we now have a nice spell check file, a nice spell check module that we can use, right? We've got a list of words, and now we can go ahead and integrate this with our main.py. So actually, pretty simple. We can also distribute this spell check file around the internet if we want. Oh, actually, we're being told that this is an invalid constant name. I'm not sure how much that will affect what we're about to do, but let's give it a shot. So in main.py, basically all we need to do now is import our Spellcheck module. And then we can print whether or not the value is spelled correctly. So print spellcheck.isSpelledCorrectly of value. And thus our module is complete. Let's go ahead and try it out. I expect there to be bugs. So if we call Python main.py on hello, just like we did previously, you can see everything works brilliantly. Fantastic. Hello is spelled correctly. How about world? How about world? Aha. So we now have a very simple command line spell checker, which runs pretty fast. That's pretty good, right? Now, you can see that in spellcheck.py, we actually did some optimizations that don't matter, right? We read the dictionary file only once. However, in main.py, we call is spelled correctly only once. So we're not really taking advantages of the optimization unless we accept more arguments than just one. So if we were to do that, let's say we accept more than one argument, right? And this is using Python split syntax, Python list slicing syntax rather. So we are basically getting all arguments except the first one. And you can see on the command line on the left, it goes ahead and turns values into a list, right? And then we can go ahead and print information on what is spelled incorrectly. And actually, who cares whether or not they're spelled correctly? We only want to learn about the ones that are spelled incorrectly. So for value in values, if not spellcheck.isSpelledCorrectly value print not spelled correctly plus value. Great. So now we have a spell check program. It runs and it tells us whether or not various words we have provided are spelled correctly. And as you can see, the dictionary is a little bit incomplete because tuna is definitely spelled correctly. However, we have just developed a program, and this long tutorial, we have demonstrated how to kind of structure your project, right? We have this very nice project with a main folder. All it has is the main user interpretation logic. It just separates the arguments and it performs the main logic. And then we have a library called Spellcheck. We could distribute this library to friends, it will work on their system, and it provides a very nice interface to check whether or not something is actually spelled correctly. And then we imported it. Now, just as in the last tutorial, we could also do things like from Spellcheck import is spelled correctly, and then here we could actually just call is spelled correctly directly, and everything works as before. So thanks for watching this tutorial. This was probably the first small project that we've worked on in this tutorial series. However, I think it was probably pretty useful. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and thanks for watching. Have a good one.